This time, we're dressing up.
So you tie these onto your face like that?
Yes.
I think this is a good way for me to do interviews.
Doing DIY. I've never used anything as brilliantly Flintstone as this.
And downing drinks.
I don't mind the odd drop of reindeer urine, but not with the mushrooms in it as well.
Ice Age Shaman style.
Oh. Did you shut the door behind you?
The British Isles have a very long history. People have been living here for tens of thousands of years. And the further back you go, the more elusive and mysterious the lives of those ancient Britons appear to be.
Stonehenge. What's the point?
It's a bit like Lego.
Who were these ancient Britons? What did they believe? What was their world like?
Are you a fan of human sacrifice?
I don't practice it myself.
As a talk show host, I should know how to ask a good question.
Where are we going to, Marianne?
Clive, we are off on an adventure.
But answers are not really my strong suit.
Mummies or not mummies?
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
So I've roped in someone with more insight into the ancient world than I'll ever have. Anthropologist Mary Ann Ochota.
Old bones,
Old
looking
stuff.
at the past, you know everything, don't you?
I like to ask a lot of questions about the past.
Together, we're going to unlock the mystic secrets of the ancient Britons.
I've decided to harness the forces of evil. Prepare to embrace the very odd indeed.
Right, I'm ready for all comers.
The charming seaside town of Scarborough in North Yorkshire. Famous over the years for its fair, fishing and golden sand. Yes, that's the spirit. But 11,000 years ago, the things that went on here would have had George and Gladys running for the hills. Because it turns out that back then, this was a truly bizarre and utterly extraordinary place. Just on the edge of Scarborough is a marshy area known as Star Carr. With a name like that, you might be picturing celebrities in Lamborghinis. But no, you've got me. Actually, it's far more exciting than that.
This may look like a perfectly ordinary field in North Yorkshire, but in fact, it's far from ordinary, because beneath its surface lies the key to unlocking a lost world, a world which takes us back, practically, to the Ice Age.
Today, it's rather chilly, but back then, this would have been as warm as you could hope for. The Ice Age was barely over, and the great glaciers of Northern Europe were still melting. But around here, things were slowly warming up, if you count a summer's day of a balmy 55 degrees as warm. Chief archaeologist Professor Nikki Milner has worked here in all weathers, and she's discovered some unbelievably old items in this field, because there's something very special about the ground at Star Carr.
There's a lot of peat here, and peat helps organic materials preserve.
Yes. And what period of time artifacts and things have you been finding? What are we talking about?
This is the Mesolithic period, which means Middle Stone Age.
Yes.
It's right at the end of the last ice age.
Right.
It's about 11,000 years ago, just as Britain began to get a bit warmer.
Yeah, warmer would be nice. 11,000 years is an almost unimaginably long time ago. If you travelled back in time, when you got to Stonehenge, you wouldn't even be halfway there. There was no farming, no money. They hadn't even got round to inventing the wheel. And the Wi-Fi was just awful. To be honest, it doesn't sound like a terribly attractive place to live, unless you were a Stone Age man. Apparently, they loved it. Stone Age artifacts have been turning up at Star Carr for 70 years. And in 2003, Nikki's team of archaeologists raised funding for a major dig here. What they found was astonishing. A treasure trove of ancient wonders unlike anything found before. Thousands of flint and bone tools, tiny beads, mysterious wooden structures, even evidence of the oldest house in Britain. Astonishing items that changed our view of Stone Age man forever. And one particular find really stood out.
So now what have we got here? These look like, what are they, antlers, bones? What are they?
A bit of both. They're bits of red deer skulls with antlers attached. In one area of the site, there were a large number all found together.
Yeah.
But no others have been found across the country, and they're very, very unusual.
So do you think they were put on the wall like you would find in a country house hotel or something like that, these deer we have killed?
Of course, these are just perfect replicas. The priceless originals are safely locked away from the fumbling fingers of a clumsy TV presenter. To me, these do look rather like hunting trophies, but Nikki's experienced eye sees something altogether more amazing.
An actual red deer skull is going to have the bottom jaw part of it and the nose part, but this has all been worked down and it's had holes punched into it as well.
So what were they for then?
Well, we think that they might have been used as headdresses.
Shall I have a go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Yep.
Yeah?
Just like that.
Hold on, this is the Stone Age we're talking about. Grunting cavemen surviving on berries and fighting off saber-toothed tigers. Fancy headdresses sound, well, a little too sophisticated for people like that.
And it's not just that they were, you know, killing deer and then chopping them up and eating them, and these are just the bits left over.
No, we've done experiments and there's lots of different processes that go on to make that, and it's quite labour intensive, so it's certainly not by accident that they're looking like this.
They're not just discarded bones and heads and antlers.
No, there's something more to it going on. 33 of these have been found at the site. They've all got holes in different places, and you know, sometimes it's been interpreted that those might be eye holes as opposed to tying on.
Eye holes for me to wear, or for somebody to wear? Or like that?
That is quite scary, actually.
Is it scary? Well, I don't know how scary it is. But again, so you tie these onto your face like that?
Yes.
I think this is a good way for me to do interviews. I quite like this as an approach.
It's really unnerving.
Well, this is a first. I've certainly annoyed interviewees before, but I don't think I've actually terrified one. And that's the point. Clearly, if I can get a reaction out of a professor of archaeology, a Mesolithic Briton wearing this thing would have been making quite a statement. But then I'm no anthropologist. Marianne, what do you make of all this?
Clive, I think the deer headdresses are one of the most exciting ancient discoveries in Britain for years. I've come to the Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology in Cambridge, where the original finds are kept, because I want to see them firsthand, to try and understand exactly what was going on. This is one of the original antler headdresses from Star Carr, and up close, it's extraordinary. You can see just how much work has gone into creating this and transforming it from the head of a red deer into this human artefact. Someone's drilled 4 holes, 2 at the back, 2 at the front here. They've shaved off the spiky bits and ground off the burrs at the antler's base. Some of the hardest parts of the antler have been worked away over hours and hours and hours. And they did it all with nothing more than fire and flint. You can see just how much time, how much energy and how much skill has been expended in creating this artifact. And it's without a doubt that that indicates to us just how important this was to the people who made it, to the people who lived 11,000 years ago. And it's an incredibly happy accident that because they disposed of it in the way that they did, preserving this organic material, I can stand here now, 11,000 years later, looking face to face at this extraordinary headdress. Nothing else like these headdresses has ever been found in Britain before or since. But archaeologists have identified an intriguing parallel. Not from Britain, but from thousands and thousands of miles away. This early 18th century illustration shows a Siberian man wearing a strikingly similar headdress. And this is where it gets exciting, because this man was a shaman. Shamanism is based on the idea of channeling both the natural and the supernatural worlds. What helps our understanding enormously is that shamans still exist today in some cultures. One thing that's common to all shamanic practices is the idea of connecting with spirits, usually through animals. That might explain the deer headgear found at Star Carr. This would mean that Mesolithic Britons were nothing like Clive's idea of grunting cavemen. These people had a deep spiritual connection with their environment. What we're talking about here is, in effect, a religion. But why deer? Why not the birds or even fish? Andy Langley is an experimental archaeologist. He believes the evidence found at Star Carr suggests that 11,000 years ago, deer were at the center of everything. He's also pretty handy with a set of antlers.
Just from the antler itself here, we can remove these tines, which can end up looking like this.
Yeah.
You can then turn those into wedges or chisels, which you can then use to work wood, bone, or more antler. You can then use the bits that are left over like this as a scraper.
So then you can use that to cleaning off the skin or the hair or the fat on the underside of a...
Yeah, which would have been an important job in hide preparation. From the beams, which are these large sections of antler here,
Yeah.
can prise out little splinters
Yeah.
of antler like these.
And what do you use those for?
So these splinters you can then go on to shape and carve into more intricate things like these.
Wow.
These are barb points.
Hello?
You of course can.
Look at that.
And there were many, many of these found at Star Carr.
Over 200 barbed points were unearthed at Star Carr. These are basically tiny harpoons, probably used to spear fish.
That is a thing of exquisite beauty.
Isn't it
and
just?
I assume fantastic functionality as well. And what about these? I mean, that's just a jawbone, right? Is that decorative or?
So, something like a jawbone, you could do all sorts of things with it, but one possibility is that you can use it as it is, as a saw. Just using the teeth as a rasp
Seriously?
and cut straight into a piece of wood and give it a go.
Can I chop this piece of wood
Certainly
up?
can.
What, literally just use
Go
it as
for
a
it.
saw? Oh my goodness, look at that.
Woodworking with a jawbone. Now, that's not a phrase I ever thought I'd say.
And turn it over.
Who knew? Bambi had such a pair of gnashers. This is awesome.
There you go.
Wow.
Job done.
That is an amazing thing.
Decorative and practical. It's obvious that deer were far more than just a source of food and fur to these people.
So you're using everything, the
Yeah.
bone, the antler, the jaw and teeth, absolutely everything. Every bit of this animal is being used for a purpose.
It is.
Okay, I get the point that if deer were providing so much in your daily life, it's not really surprising that you'd revere them. Because without them, you'd be pretty stuffed.
So when you see a deer in the distance through the forest and you're on a hunting trip, not only are you seeing dinner, you're also seeing
You're seeing a tool.
shop.
You're seeing a toolbox. Yeah.
All the evidence from Star Carr points to a people who are both skillful and spiritual. I'm imagining Star Carr as a kind of Stone Age Coachella, with hordes of unwashed nomads gathering here once a year to down a few beers and dance around in deer headdresses as the sun sets.
Nice idea, Clive. But the evidence says these people were more than just nomads. When archaeologists were digging here, they found a series of 10-centimetre wide holes. And these holes rewrote the history of Stone Age Britain. Again. These were the foundations of houses, the oldest houses ever found in Britain. So people weren't just passing through. They came and they stayed. To an anthropologist like me, there's nothing more exciting than someone claiming to have found the earliest evidence for a house in Britain. And houses at Star Carr are seriously ancient. But with only the foundations left, it's hard to know what the complete houses looked like. To find out, experimental archaeologists Deirdre Pomstra and Leo Walterbeek are trying to recreate an 11,000-year-old house using only the tools and skills available to people back then. Clearly, there's no instruction manual. Those Stone Age Britons were too busy coming up with religion and housing to invent writing as well. Slackers. So for Deirdre and Leo, it's a process of trial and error using wood, flints and reeds. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, I'm Marianne. How's it going? Deirdre.
Hello, hello.
Look at this. Wow. It's absolutely amazing.
It's a round shape, because that's what the floor plan, the post holes kind of told us. And you can either make a dome shape out of it or a teepee shape. The posts themselves, they were 10 centimeter approximately thick.
Right,
so
okay.
that's quite thick wood. So that's why we thought in this case, let's make a teepee shape.
This isn't some temporary shelter. It's a substantial structure. Wow! Look at this! Leo and Deirdre reckon this house of straw could last for as long as 10 years, provided the big bad wolf doesn't blow it down, obviously. So you can really see the way it's constructed. You can see how the posts go down into the earth. That's what the archaeologists are finding at Star Carr.
That's what you're finding, yeah. Those are those post holes, yeah.
Amazing. They're solid bits of timber, aren't they?
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
I mean, they've kind of invested in this as a house. And the carbon dating of artefacts from the site backs this up. It shows that people were living at Star Carr over an astonishing 800-year period. That's 8 centuries of keeping up appearances. So you'd want your straw house to be durable. How did they do that? It's not often you get a chance to get your hands dirty with some 11,000-year-old DIY, so I'm going to get stuck in. What else do we need to do to finish this off?
So you saw those rings outside. And what we need to do is to bind those rings firmly to these rings of wood on the inside and thus keep them on the roof.
Right, okay.
So we'll go up there. That's not really finished. We have this, this wooden needle. We're going to push it through the reeds, flip it, and then we're going to push the willows through.
Okay.
And Leo's on the outside waiting for us. And he's going to tie the knots.
Okay.
Can you put the next one quite close?
Yeah.
So here,
Yeah.
we push.
Yeah, not too far. Leo's out there.
Yeah, that's perfect.
We're basically stitching this house together. This takes real ingenuity to do well. So if this is how the people at Star Carr did it, it suggests they were pretty smart. There.
Just as long as it's above the lath.
Yeah.
Okay, don't impale Leo.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Straight in Leo's eye.
No, I'm far enough.
He's got to.
Yes, I've got him.
Okay,
Yeah.
stick out. Easy. All it needs now is the finishing touch, a door to keep out that post-Ice Age chill. And it involves a particularly old-fashioned piece of kit.
Can I give you this one?
Yes, I've never used anything as brilliantly Flintstone as this. Okay. It's a DIY problem as old as time. Getting a door to fit the frame. That is amazing.
Beautiful.
Can we go in?
Yeah.
Make a cup of tea?
Sure.
Would you shut the door behind you? If I were a Stone Age real estate agent, this would be my premier listing. The perfect starter home for any self-respecting nomad about town. At Star Carr, the nomadic hunters that had roamed across Britain hung up their deerskin boots and their deerskull hats. But what was so special about this site that hunter-gatherers changed their way of life this much?
Don't worry, Marianne, I have the answer. A stick. Mike Bamforth of York University is a prehistoric wood expert who knew they existed.
So, Mike, looks like a long, thin, stick-shaped thing. What is it?
It's definitely a long, thin, stick-shaped thing,
Yeah.
but it's an 11,000-year-old long, thin, stick-shaped thing for a start. And I must admit, I'm quite excited today because I've never seen this whole artefact together before.
Oh, right.
Apparently, it's a bow. And not just any old bow. This is the oldest complete bow in the world. And like the deer headdresses, making it required great skill.
So there's a lot of science and thought and craft that's gone into this. It's not just a stick.
It's not just a stick. It's taken out of a much bigger log. They started off with a young tree about this big around the tree trunk, and they've taken the bark off and they've kept the sapwood rings on the outside.
Right.
And then we've got the heartwood rings on the inside.
Yeah.
Having the two kinds of tree ring make a big natural spring, so as you pull it and you're putting energy into the wood, you're storing up the energy, releasing it so it can shoot an arrow out. And that's one of the reasons we know that it's a bow.
It's amazing that it survived at all. But I have to say, I was expecting something a little, well, bigger.
It is quite slender.
Yes.
It is quite slender.
Does that mean it's got only a certain amount of power to it?
Yes, I mean, when people think of hunting in the Mesolithic with bows, they often think of groups of people hunting big games. Elk, red deer, and this probably isn't a heavy enough bow to do that with.
Yeah.
It's smaller, it's lighter, it would have shot a lighter arrow less far and less fast.
Right, so Mike's convinced me the bow wasn't used for killing deer, even really tiny ones. So what was it for?
In their small house, there were bits of burnt and charred fish bones.
Right.
And that got us thinking perhaps they use it for fish.
And is that easier than putting a hook on a line and catching the way people might go angling today or fly fishing? Is it easier to shoot them?
Depends how good a shot you are, I think.
Well, I suppose so. Is there a way we can test this out with a bow like this?
Well, there is actually, yeah. Fortunately, we've had a replica bow made for us by an experimental archaeologist.
Yeah.
It's willow, it's the same size, it's the same length, and we've very happily used that to shoot some fish in our lake with.
Oh, right. So shall we have a crack at that?
We should, I think.
Yeah.
How hard could it be? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. Or in this case, a shallow pond.
Absolutely, let's see if we can get a fish.
Yeah. So you're recreating the bow. What are you doing with the string?
We've got a bit of rawhide here,
Oh, right.
and we've soaked it this morning to make it wet and pliable. Just making sure it stays wet and pliable. As it dries out, it's going to get quite hard and stiff. So what we need to do is string this bow up.
Okay.
So we can.
You don't want it hard and
shoot
stiff. You want it nice and pliable.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, I see. All right. That feels nice and springy. So
It looks good on you. It looks good on you.
thank you. Now I need to get an arrow, and that's obviously going to go in there to that notch.
I may look like a middle-aged man in an anorak, but armed with this bow, I am a Mesolithic hunter.
There's nothing obviously swimming by at the moment.
Ready to slay
Have we got
beast,
what we've done earlier?
bird, or in this case, supermarket trout.
You'll pop it on the edge, and then you've got a good chance of hitting it.
Yes. Okay. I'm not really confident I'm going to achieve anything, but I won't. Oh, there it is.
There he is.
Does look a bit sad, floating on the surface. Lucky no fish is going to suffer in the course of this. A, because it's dead already, and B, because I'm probably not going to hit it. Oh, that's not. That didn't work as quite as well as it might have done. Oh, that's.
Clearly, my low expectations were fully justified.
Hey, you hit the fish.
Take your pick at this point.
But I'm sure even Stone Age man needed a little bit of practice.
Got it.
To be honest, I'd probably starve to death in the Mesolithic.
So, do you like a fish supper?
I would love a fish
I
supper.
will see if I can retrieve that from the lake without falling in myself. Oh, which is harder than it looks. There we are. One fish meal ready to cook.
Good shooting.
Well, there's always that peculiar sense of triumph when a full-grown man has killed a. Yes, I know, it's very funny. The tiny fish, but that would have killed it, I suppose, assuming it didn't wriggle away in time. It's a lot easier catching a dead fish than a live one that's swimming away from you.
The discoveries of the bow and fish bones suggest Star Carr had an abundant food supply beyond just the deer, which would certainly have helped in a society that hadn't invented writing, let alone supermarkets. Now, clearly I'm no expert, but where there's fish, there's usually water. But how much water? If only we could see what the place really looked like 11,000 years ago. Well, it turns out we can. Because with the magic of computer wizardry, archaeologist Marcus Abbott has brought Star Carr back to life. And being a convivial sort of chap, he's offered to show me his handiwork in his local. What Marcus has done is rather magical. He's taken the data from the thousands of seeds and microscopic pollen particles found at Star Carr and combined that with geological evidence. Then he's quite literally grown a virtual world.
Oh, this is fun. So what's growing there? These are
reeds.
Yeah.
So each plant that we build is an individual. So we'll end up with billions of plants,
Yeah.
all interacting with each other. So we're essentially building a kind of digital world based on the archaeological evidence. So
To these digital plants, Marcus added digital sun, digital wind, and digital rain, recreating the conditions in Yorkshire 11,000 years ago. Then he sat back and let Star Carr grow inside his computer.
what we end up with is a little digital film set.
I'm looking at the same plants growing in exactly the same places as they were 11,000 years ago. And Marcus didn't stop there.
We also decided that we would produce an animated film.
The secret of Star Carr is staring me in the face. The geological and biological data revealed that our unremarkable field was once on the edge of a 1.5 square mile freshwater lake that formed here at the end of the Ice Age more than 12,000 years ago. This is why people came to Star Carr and stayed. A lake that gave them more than just a few fish. It gave them everything they could need. Trees and reeds to build their houses, and an abundant supply of fresh water. Not just for them, but also for the precious deer that would have been drawn to this immense watering hole.
It's a sort of return to a sort of paradise, a Garden of Eden. A simpler time with shelter in what must have been, at some points at any rate, fairly chilly environment.
Yeah, definitely.
You're not tempted to put some humans in there and see them?
I am.
Have you got a sort of a dark web version of this with humans coming in and misbehaving, sacrificing, or whatever they might be getting up to?
Or better still, a version showing them performing some sort of shamanic rituals to their deer goddess. But who were these spiritual people, and where did their rituals come from? There's a clue to that from the dig too, and you can see it in part of Marcus's reconstruction. At first glance, and second glance too if I'm being honest, it looks like a pile of old wood washed up against the lake edge. But Marcus tells me that it could be one of the most significant things ever found at Star Carr.
This is how the wood appeared when it was originally excavated. It may not look like much, but this ancient pile of timber could be the key to explaining the life and the beliefs of the people from Star Carr. Because it suggests an intimate connection between everyday life and those mysterious shamanic headdresses. These precious pieces of wood have survived for 11,000 years. They're now stored in a controlled environment at the University of York.
This is actually the oldest evidence of carpentry that we've got in Europe.
Wow. How can you tell? How do you know that that isn't just a piece of tree?
Well, some of the pieces have been split, and you can see that. I mean, I'm going to be really, really careful with this piece here. Okay. But if I just turn it round here, we have pieces which are very thin. One piece going that way, and then this is a piece underneath.
Wow, so that's basically a plank.
Yeah, it's been split.
And that's using some kind of flint-bladed axe.
Yeah,
Just to chop the tree in half?
Yeah, just using flint axes, and there are lots of flint axes found from site.
What are these two bits here?
So these are smaller pieces of wood over the top. You can see actually underneath this one there's another timber underneath, and so it looks like they were laying down one layer and then putting down another and then another on top of it as well.
So what were they building? Well, Nikki's convinced these pieces of wood formed a series of timber platforms running along the lake edge.
You can see that they stretch for some of them about 10 metres.
Wow. Now that I'm looking at the photograph, it does seem more obviously like they've been placed there. But can you be sure that this isn't just, I don't know, there was a heavy rainfall and the water just washed this wood into a big pile?
I mean, the way that they've been placed on top of each other, they're very clearly put there. And there's not only just that one, there are 3 of these platforms on the side of the lake, and they all date to slightly different periods of time. So for the 800 years that people are there, probably by putting these timbers down, they're stabilising the lake muds and make it easier to get out into the lake.
But what were they doing on the lake? I guess the platforms would make a great spot for fishing. Even Clive could catch something from one of these. Or they could have been jetties to pull out small boats. But Nikki thinks the platforms went far beyond the purely practical.
They're all doing some strange things at Star Carr. You know, they're depositing artefacts like the headdresses in the lake. And so you do wonder whether actually there might be some kind of ritual element to the use of the platforms as well.
This may sound like a crazy theory, but it's not. Because evidence from other ancient cultures around the world reveals that ritual offerings were often placed in lakes. Water was spiritually important. So these platforms could have been stages on which shamanic rituals were performed and offerings made into the lake. And the evidence makes one thing crystal clear. These practices and beliefs endured here for hundreds of years. Star Carr is clearly a place that people come back to time and time again. This is a special place, a spiritual place that people also make their lives around.
Yeah. Quite robust people, though, in terms of just dealing with the climate, because it was at least as cold as it is now, possibly a lot colder, because the ice was just still retreating. And living in these small structures and, you know, wood fires, that's all they had to keep themselves warm.
These were people who were living cheek by jowl with the natural world, and they're entirely dependent on the resources of that natural world to keep them alive.
Yeah. Humanity had developed, and they were working out how, obviously, to catch animals, how to arrange themselves around a fire, even have a building. And they weren't just grunting around like, you know, cavemen and knocking each other on the head with clubs.
It's really easy to assume that these people were kind of like ape men dragging their knuckles on the floor, but they were fully modern humans. Put them in a pair of jeans and walk down the street, and they're us.
Yes, the antlers might raise a few eyebrows, but I take your point.
I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that when you look at the antler frontlets, the headdresses from Star Carr, we are looking at ritual, we are looking at religion.
Yes, and you're in no doubt of that because there's so many of them, or the form of them, the shaping of them.
It's a no-brainer. This is what humans do. We try and make sense of the world around us by animating it with spirits that explain why things happen the way they do. That's why the sun goes up. That's why the deer was there. That's why we didn't catch anything.
There's always a spiritual element in human societies, it would appear.
Yeah, it just seems obvious to me that that is all about communing with the spirits.
But what does communing with the spirits actually mean? What might shamanic ceremonies at Star Carr have involved? Where better to find answers than a place alive with ancient, mystical energies? A magical place. A place known as Peckham.
Well, this is quite an urban location, but I'm assured a shaman lives along here. I've got a name and address. Let's seek her out.
Imelda Almquist is a shamanic practitioner, artist and author. She spent years studying the shamanic practices of indigenous people in Scandinavia.
So, Clive, are you ready for this?
I am.
Tonight, she's going to teach me some of their shamanic techniques. Perhaps the same kind of thing that took place at Star Carr 11,000 years ago.
Or just, yes,
On the blanket.
On the blanket. Righty-ho.
Communicating with the spirits means dropping to a slightly altered state of consciousness into our hearts, into a place where we become receptive, so we can hear their voices and sense them and follow their guidance. In the Western world, we adopted a very scientific worldview. Shamanism tried to teach that there are other equally valid ways of perception.
I have to admit to being slightly anxious about what Imelda has in store for me. I've read somewhere that shamans sometimes induce trances by drinking powerful hallucinogenic potions.
So you don't have to drink the urine of a deer that's eaten mushrooms?
Well, that's what the Sami people did.
Yeah.
But you can also use other means of arriving at an altered state of consciousness. Like today, I'm going to be drumming, using my shamanic drum.
Well, I'm glad we're not going to be doing that.
Doing that tonight.
Because I don't mind the odd drop of reindeer urine, but not with the mushrooms in it as well.
There's no evidence that the people at Star Carr drank any weird concoctions. But they did have those antler headdresses. And Imelda tells me that dressing up as an animal is still common practice in contemporary shamanism.
Making a headdress or a costume is a way of merging, so blurring the shape between a human and an animal.
Right. Imelda says that deer are a powerful and recurring figure in Scandinavian shamanic beliefs. And looking around me, it's clear Imelda's a big fan. We'll never know exactly what the ceremonies at Star Carr involved, but Imelda wants to teach me a form of meditation that she hopes will connect me with the deer goddess.
Is that all right?
That's all right.
Yeah?
I'm not wearing a deer headdress tonight. Frankly, they're rather uncomfortable, but Imelda always keeps a spare deer bone on hand for emergencies.
This is not a replica. This was picked up in the forest in Sweden.
Okay.
It's an actual deer. So I'm going to pick up my drum.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. I'm going to start drumming now. It kind of synchronizes to your heartbeat, and then also it just makes it easier to drop into that like dreaming state between waking and dreaming.
Shamans love drumming. Remember that Siberian chap holding his drum aloft? And it's obvious why. I'm finding the repetitive beat hypnotic. Add a bit of dressing up, perhaps some dancing, and it's easy to imagine that this ritual could have been a powerful sensory experience. There's touch, smell, light and darkness, sound. And I have to say, I think it's having an effect. It's the end of the last ice age, 11,000 years ago, a Yorkshire field on the edge of a freshwater lake. Life echoing to the beat of a drum, as antler-wearing shamans commune with the animal spirits. Geese soaring overhead, majestic deer galloping by the lake. It's strange what goes through your mind when you're meditating on a floor in South London.
Oh, thank you very much.
Did this give you even a glimpse of another way of perceiving something or not?
Yeah, I think it gave me a glimpse, but just a glimpse.
Yeah.
It's like peripheral vision. There was something there, but when you turn to look at it and it's not there, it's gone.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's left me a bit befuddled.
Well, that was a genuinely confusing experience. I've no previous experience of shamanism, and I was perhaps trying too hard to experience something. But I saw some shapes, I felt some things on my head, even smelt some smells. I'm not sure what to make of it all.
Whether I connected to the spirit world or not, I do feel a little closer to the Mesolithic people of Star Carr, who clearly had a taste for the spiritual.
The more we learn about Star Carr, the more it's clear that ritual practice is at the heart of everyday life. But who were these people? Where did they come from? There's a tantalising clue in yet another unique discovery. Lucy Crichton is the curator in charge of this precious item. Hi, Lucy.
Hi.
Wow.
Here it is.
This is so exciting. Of all the special things that have been discovered at Star Carr during the excavations, this is possibly the most extraordinary.
So this is a wonderful engraved pendant, and it was special enough to be deliberately placed into the lake at Star Carr.
This is Britain's earliest piece of Mesolithic art.
Look at that.
Just like the deer headdresses, it was almost certainly a ritual offering. So this is possibly 11,000 years old.
Indeed, and it probably looks very similar to when it was first made and worn.
OK.
So this object is made of shale, which is a type of stone, and it's found locally to Star Carr in the form of water-worn pebbles.
And they've obviously drilled a hole here to make it into a pendant.
They have. The pebble shape is natural. There aren't signs of it being worked, but the drilled suspension hole and these very faint engravings would have been made using flint tools, many of which have been found at Star Carr.
Under the microscope, archaeologists found almost no sign of wear on the pendant, meaning it was put in the lake when new, or as good as new. That adds weight to the idea that this wasn't dropped or discarded, but was placed in the lake as a sacrificial offering. Can I hold it?
You can. You've joined the Blue Gloves Club, so you can hold it.
I feel genuinely quite nervous.
It's fairly fragile, so...
So don't drop it?
So don't drop it.
I can see the headline now. TV host breaks rare artifact. Let's not do that then. And these marks, I mean, they are intriguing. They're so subtle. This isn't a bling piece of jewellery to show off to the rest of the tribe. I mean, you'd know that you had these marks on the pendant that you were wearing, but no one else would necessarily know, would they?
No, you have to look very closely to see them. And you're right, it's likely that the designs would have held most importance and most significance for the wearer themselves.
What do you think it's a design of?
It's so difficult to say. I like the idea that it might be a depiction of something from nature, so that it might depict some of the woodland near Star Carr, or perhaps a leaf or part of the natural environment. So if I had to place a bet, that's what I'd go for.
Other experts think they could be tally marks recording the number or type of animals killed. The truth is, nobody knows for sure, but one thing is certain. This was, and is, a very special object. So special, some experts suspect it may have been worn by a shaman. What an absolute privilege to be able to hold something that was special to someone living in Star Carr 11,000 years ago. Gives me the tingles. Nothing else like this pendant has ever been discovered in Britain, but it's not the only one in the world. Hundreds of miles away in Scandinavia, archaeologists have found Mesolithic amber pendants with a strikingly similar pattern. Could there be a connection between the people of Star Carr and the people of Scandinavia?
I hate to rain on your parade, Marianne, but there's the small matter of 350 miles of North Sea in between Yorkshire and Scandinavia. Mesolithic people may have had boats, but we're talking hollowed-out logs and wicker baskets, not cross-channel ferries. So, could they have got here? Nikki Milner has a genuinely surprising answer. They didn't use boats at all.
You have to imagine there's no sea here, and it was actually, there was a land bridge between Britain and the rest of Europe 11,000 years ago.
What, no sea here at all?
No,
Where was
no.
it?
Well,
Who got it?
at that time, because there had been an ice age and there was a lot of glaciers, a lot of this water was locked into the ice.
All right.
And so during the Mesolithic and right through to about 8,000 years ago, that landscape from Star Carr extended right across to Denmark.
So you could walk from here to Denmark, to Norway, to all the way across there?
Yeah, effectively. And there would have been people living out there in what is the North Sea now.
So while water was still locked up in glaciers to the north, there was a land connection between Yorkshire and Scandinavia. People could simply have walked to Star Carr from what is now mainland Europe, bringing their way of life and their beliefs with them.
And as the climate changed and it got warmer, the ice began to melt and sea levels rose. The North Sea got larger and larger, and then about 8,000 years ago, we became an island.
So the whole country cut itself away from Europe.
Yes.
To much celebration by some people and much gnashing of teeth by others, I dare say.
Quite possibly, yes.
Yeah.
This all puts the discoveries at Star Carr in a rather different light.
It certainly does, Clive, because it seems to me the similarity between the headdresses found at Star Carr, the one pictured from 18th century Siberia, and the deer bones and skulls in Imelda's living room could be more than a coincidence. There could have been a continuity of ideas and beliefs that stretched thousands of miles, possibly from Yorkshire all the way to Scandinavia, and perhaps even Asia. 6,000 years before Stonehenge was constructed, Star Carr was already a complex, interconnected community. It's a truly extraordinary world, hidden beneath an ordinary field.
Clive, how was your shamanic journey?
It was an odd experience. To be honest, I was a bit disappointed because I understood that the way to do a proper trance-like state is you drink the urine of a deer that has eaten special mushrooms. So I was all ready for that.
Give me the urine.
So what do you think about what we can tell about the people at Star Carr? Anthropology is your subject. Do you get a strong picture of what they were up to?
If you compare it to cultures around the world that are more recent, you do again and again get those themes where people wearing a part of an animal suggests that you take the spirit of the animal in some way, or it allows you to transcend your human form and become something other.
And even just using it as a mask immediately transforms somebody. A person in a mask is scary or impressive.
Yeah, you become someone else.
Yeah.
Of course, with those amazing antler headdresses, it suggests a complicated religious world.
But it's a beautiful sight because it's just a field, but underneath it, there's a whole history.